Okay, so Tiberius and I are back for another 10-minute talk. That's right, buddy. You're helping me this time. You're not sleeping all the way through. Um, so this is a request from one of our athletes just to talk about how long you need to be on a bike before you can legitimately race on it, or how long do you need to kind of adapt to a new bike before you can race on it, and basically it's an opportunity for me to talk about the principle of training specificity. Um, so basically, what this means is that your body will adapt in a very specific way to a specific stimulus. And I think that's an important thing to know because it applies to training just sort of generally. So, for example, you do a bicep curl, your body will adapt muscle protein synthesis so that your myofilaments etc in your muscles, they'll get stronger in that particular area of the bicep that is feeling the stimulus heaviest, and you'll get better at doing that motion. And that's not just because of muscle building, it's also because of neuromuscular efficiencies as well. So that's muscle memory, basically, we like to call it. So basically, the point I'm trying to make is that when it comes to racing on a new bike, your body needs time and training to adapt to that specific stimulus. And I mean, it's how long is a piece of string, really? But you're probably talking, I would say months rather than days, So I just really want to emphasize that point about the principle of training specificity, because that applies to all kinds of things. So it's why you might be a very good runner, but you might not be a great cyclist, or typically it's the other way around. And it's just because your body has been exposed to a very specific stimulus, and that is what it has evolved to be better at. So then, if we apply it to bikes, and in particular, if we're talking about moving from a road bike to a TT bike, or maybe from a road bike to a more aero position or a more aero bike, whatever the scenario, typically what that tends to mean is a bit of a closing of the hip angle. And that is basically the angle between your thigh and your stomach. And it just means that when you get that bit lower, that hip angle closes, and it can be harder to generate power. And so you need time riding in that position, getting used to producing something like the same power. Now, probably if you're going from a good road bike setup to a TT bike setup, you're probably actually not going to be able to produce the same amount of power, but obviously the aerodynamic advantages can be significant. So you've got to allow time to get comfortable. Also need to do your mobility work and core strengthening working. They will accelerate those adaptations to the new bike. You also need time to adapt to the different handling of, particularly if we're talking about a TT bike. So the way that TT bikes are designed, the frame is designed so that the majority of the weight is towards the back wheel, because it's done that way because it has in mind that your upper body will be lying on the skis on the aero bars, and so there'll be a significant weight moving forwards, and so the weighting of the bike is towards the back. What that means is that when you're on the ball horns, when you're taking a corner, the front end can be very light on a TT bike and really twitchy, and that takes some getting used to. Okay, so that's one really top tip. If you're getting moving from a road bike to a TT bike, is expect the handling to be really twitchy. It takes a while to get used to, and then if you've got different types of brakes and things like that, also the type of one of the things I found is be really specific of the type of tape that you use on the ball horns and the aero bars on the TT bike. Get something sticky, get something grippy. Don't stick with the cork tape, because that stuff gets sweaty and you're in a rush to get braking. It can be pretty sketchy. So yeah, that's, we talked about bedding you in, but also you've got to bed the bike in. Now, there's kind of two main things that I think about here. The first is the drivetrain. your chain and the cassette in particular, essentially they kind of mesh together, they mold together, and so you need time really for that chain and the cassette to kind of bed in. So you might get like clicking noise, or what I've had recently is just the pulley wheels. Doesn't sit super nice on the pulley wheels, but over time it dissipates. And then one that you may not be aware of is you need to bed the tyres in. Now, I tried to check what the recommended amount of mileage is before basically the factory finish on the tyre is scrubbed off. So you might see, if you watch cycling on television, when they interview mechanics, you might sometimes see them with sandpaper sanding down tyres, and that's basically to get rid of the factory finish that is on the tyre, and that factory finish can impact traction basically. So yeah, you want to get those 100 k's or something in those tyres before you race on them in anger. So those are just a few things to think about when you're moving on to a new race bike. Give yourself time, both for you to adapt, but also for the bike to bed in. And just remember that principle of training specificity. Your body will only adapt to that very specific stimulus. Okay, so yeah, there you go.